It's the WIXOSS podcast, known as the Life Burst podcast. I'm a little brain fried. We just finished. What did we just finish?
We just finished the first North American WIXOSS ceremony.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was a smashing success.
I am actually impressed you brought that much energy to the intro.
I tried, because I'm not going to have it for the rest of it. Guys, it was 7 grueling, quick rounds, too. We went faster than normal.
Yeah, so I'm just going to disclosure. I apologize if we're a bit low energy. It's literally 20 minutes after the tournament, like everything. And I'm sleepy.
It is true. My goal is to finish this podcast and then go have a drink.
Yeah.
It's literally an order of importance. Finish podcast, have a drink.
Did you know that playing 7 back-to-back games that are roughly 35 to 40 minutes long is really tiring?
Super draining.
Did you know?
So let's not skip too much and get straight to the point. We can just say how we did.
Let's talk about our tournament arc.
True. And we'll spoil the ending for you guys at the top end. What ended up happening was I got top 64. Mm-hmm. And
I just barely did not make top 64.
Yep.
It was close, but...
It was close. It was very close. And it could have went many different ways. Mm-hmm. Looking back at my games, there was very winnable games that I lost to life bursts. Mm-hmm. And for you?
Actually, a lot of the games that I lost were really due to my own either... It was really like a misplay on my end, or it was some sort of like lack of skill that I had, but we'll go over that into more detail.
Yeah. So, and I just want to
I did win a few.
Yeah, you did. You barely missed out on top 64. And I want to stress too here, like, I think part of this podcast is it's going to be important is dealing with sort of this loss. Like you do put a lot of effort into it, right? I'd say that I put a fair amount of effort, but I think you put just as much, if not more effort into it than me. And it stinks to lose, right? Like even the anime deals with that on like, the 3rd or 4th episode of Diva?
Yeah, spoiler alert, but there is an episode where Akino becomes a center. And she experiences losing. And, she talks about it like it's not scary, it's just frustrating.
Yeah, frustrating is the real word for
That's
it.
the word.
I'm even frustrated with how I did. Like, because my games went to life bursts and the Life Burst podcast. And
subscribe.
And because it went to life bursts for most of my games, like there's a world where I was 6-1. With when I look back at the life bursts and how they happened.
Yeah.
But you know what? We live, we learn, we strive to get better, and it's only one ceremony. And they said specifically on the website that there's going to be more.
Yeah, they already said that there would be more. Do you want to go round by round, or would you like to do some like standout matches?
I would love to. I don't think we should go round by round because I don't think there's a lot that stands out. But I would
have my notes on me.
I know, and I don't have my notes on me. I don't take notes. But I think we actually should start before the tournament, right? Like we told everyone what we kind of did to testing, and just as a recap here, because I think it's still a good testing thing. One of our people who was testing with us got 19th.
Yeah, they did really well.
Yeah, and they really were close to getting top 16.
Yeah.
And so what we started out with testing was you and I played the entire, like we had basically 3 phases of testing, right? Phase 1, we played a lot of decks, just all of the decks that we possibly could play in Changing Diva to say, what does this format look like right now? What's our general consensus on this format? After we did that, we had an idea of the power rankings of these types of things. That was the end of our sort of phase 1. You and I then went into it and said, okay, what do we think the meta looks like now? Like, what's our projection for the meta? And we'll talk.
What's our projection map for the meta?
Yeah, projection map for the meta.
Which is PRJ map. That's what that is.
Which is I'm really happy to say, based on what I saw from the tournament, we were accurate. We were almost spot on with what we said.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then after that, we said, all right, what decks have a positive win rate against the decks specifically in the meta? Now, to be clear here, this doesn't make it the best deck in the world. It just means what can beat the best deck.
Right.
It might lose to literally everything else.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a fly in our logic for our games because of that. But we had a shot.
Sure.
And then we tested the living crap out of them, and we went to phase 3, which was, all right, let's tech what we think will help us shore up our matches against these what we think is the metagame share. The weighted metagame, if it were, right? And we said in our phase 2 testing, we were like, no limit's going to be 50%. And you know what? No limit was 50%.
45 decks. Like, that's a lot out of how many people were in that tournament.
Yeah. And then Card Jockey was the other, which they're both aggro decks. So we were like, we're still in an aggro meta. So we were teching against mostly aggro with the understanding that Musica and Madoka would also be strong decks that would have a good showing. And we were right about that as well.
Yep.
That was the next one, was Diagram.
Yep. There was also some like other decks sprinkled in that we ran into. I actually ran into an Ancient Surprise deck, like a classic Ot Center Ancient Surprise deck, which I was like, you know me, I was so happy to see that.
Yeah.
I loved it. And we also saw several Bang centers, and we also knew someone that was running a Love It center. And an Akino center. So there was quite a variety down on the smaller percentages.
I have a theory.
Ooh.
That the lower brackets, where we mostly played in the average brackets, were filled with a bunch of weird decks that were performing somewhat well and somewhat not well.
Right.
And the higher brackets were mostly Card Jockey.
We say weird respectfully. Because we mean weird as in, like, it's not something we would have come up with, but it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right. Dream teams or off meta choices.
Yeah.
And based on what I was talking with my friends who were in the higher brackets, they were basically running into aggro constantly.
Yeah. We kind of called that going in. We've said that for several podcasts now, and I know that that's not like the ideal opinion, because not everybody wants to see like a red deck, to give it a magic term, like a red deck wins like all over the top percentiles. But, you know, we said it several times, like, why that might be the case. And I do think that the numbers in this tournament like kind of reflect that, to be just to like back kind of what we were saying.
Yeah, that reign is close to over if we're going to follow the Japanese meta, which currently looks like what's happening. Because Musica and Madoka are starting to show that they are viable choices against No Limit and Card Jockeys respectively. And then Nova is going to come in on this next set and really make this like white walls deck exist.
Yeah, we're going to have another shakeup, which is always a good thing.
And then it's going to get more nuanced as well, because Ray is going to be a very good tempo-based deck. It's not quite aggro, but it's not quite control.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see that. And of course, we'll keep you guys updated with our thoughts, opinions, and like predictions as that stuff comes out more.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to make a prediction here right now, it's going to be that No Limit and Card Jockey are still the best decks right now, but not by such a wide margin as they used to be.
I would agree with that.
And what you're going to see is, I believe the winner of the entire tournament, by the way, was Musica deck, which I'm not surprised with.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I called Musica being one of the strongest decks in the format, and I think I'm still right about that.
I had a thought earlier today. I think that one of the reasons, possibly, you guys can tell me your opinions in the comment section down below, but I think it's possible that Musica might not be as popular as the other decks is because I feel like maybe one of the best ways to play that deck is to play it as a good stuff black mid-range deck.
Yeah.
With whatever splash of color
I
that
misstated.
you might want.
I just realized. I believe it was Madoka that took it all.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I still want to like kind of talk about Musica because I don't think it's a bad deck at all.
No. If I actually had the cards for Musica, I think I would have played Musica instead.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why aside from it being like a good stuff mid-range deck, a lot of the other decks that we see in WIXOSS kind of have like a very like concentrated way for that deck to win. If we're going to be looking at card jockey, obviously endless punchline is the way to win, and everything you do in that game is trying to get you to that endless punchline. No limits, kind of the same, because it's just going to punch down things. Like, that's its whole thing, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good stuff deck, but it also definitely is not a mid-range deck either.
Yeah.
So the way that Musica operates is that you kind of do your best turn every turn, and that is your win condition. Is it's more like a win the battles to win the war, instead of trying to have this whole big strategy to win the entire game.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I realize we didn't say this yet. You brought what card deck?
Oh, I brought Card Jockey. I thought that was obvious.
I also, I brought No Limit. I didn't bring Uchu like many people would have thought I did. I played the Uchu matchup against No Limit over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's a bad matchup. It's just not a good matchup. Like, and there's a wide variety of No Limit decks, which I'm just going to say some No Limit decks are a little bit more sus and a little bit less refined. But when you get to the more and more refined lists, those decks will generally take out on top. And also, I say I don't think they're going to show what the top 64 was percentage wise. If they do, my thought would be is it's actually pretty overwhelmingly No Limit, would be my guess.
Probably.
But take top 16 with a grain of salt, right? Because you might go like, well, the top winner was this one. But you have to recognize that that's not a good overview of what the format looks like as a whole. Often, right, in all these big end card tournaments, you usually see the top winner of that actually be not the most popular deck. It's usually whatever was the most representative. And so in this case, this format right now looks like it's a card jockey and aggro format, and I expect that to start to change to being basically No Limit Madoka Musica format.
Yeah. Cool. So do you want to talk about like some of the other decks that we've kind of played to prepare for this?
Yeah, sure. So we did our normal gauntlet. We played a lot of mirrors against No Limit and card jockey specifically. We have a Madoka deck, and I still think that Madoka deck is super strong and was good. It would be a good choice. It struggles a little bit against No Limit, but the Musica deck doesn't struggle against No Limit. It wins the majority of the time.
But it might not do as well against the other decks. Yeah.
Maybe. Card jockey, it's I think a 50-50, but it's whoever
it really
wins that
depends
dice roll.
on who goes first, because you know with Salvage the Future that can really mess up Card Jockey's day.
Yeah.
So
and then we played a little bit of Uchu, but not a lot. Because I honestly expected Uchu was very good at stalling the game out long. And this tournament specifically had a 30-minute round timer. And it ended up being basically 40 minutes. But a lot of people, I'm sure it was going to scare quite a few people off of Uchu.
Yeah.
And then, I should clarify, that's a Tamago Center. I knew we were going to play against Lovitz because they thought, well, maybe they could be more aggro. And that is a fine, valid option. We played a little bit of Sandbaka because I did expect to see some people just representing Sandbaka.
Yeah.
We basically did no Ancient Surprise because we didn't expect to see it at all.
I saw one.
I think there was 2 Ancient Surprises.
There were 2 Ancient... Yeah, that's what that person told me, is that there's 2 Ancient Surprise decks in the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
I called that from a while back. I was like, I would love to see somebody just come in and like beat some people with Ancient Surprise.
And a fair amount of bang.
We did
Various
see a fair
forms
amount of bang. I think I went up against... I went up against 2 different bang decks. Yeah. We also built a Lovett deck, which was interesting. I had actually considered taking Lovett to the tournament for a really long time. There were just some things between the balancing of the cards and the certain pieces that I wanted to use that I was like, it doesn't... like every time we played it against some of the more popular decks or some of the more streamlined decks that we had, I just decided I don't think this is going to work the way that I want to, even though I really enjoy playing the deck.
Well, the real issue isn't necessarily Xenocluster, which is an issue. The real issue is the fact that No Limit uses all their enter every turn, so you never have a chance to enter burn them.
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah, it's tough to enter burn somebody when they don't have any enter.
Yep.
Or it's tough to enter burn somebody when they have all the enter in the world, and it's not going to make a difference if you do.
And there's two schools of thought when it comes to No Limit. And so we made two different No Limit decks, which was one which is sort of teched against the mirror. You're running Falclores, you're running Haniels, things like that to try to like put in more ambush life bursts as well as like lane cluttering as well as downing things. Yeah. And the second version was the one that I was running. And the one that I was running focuses more on just hyper aggression. I'm still running the 2 discards, for example, even though there's Xenocluster. And basically the people that I ran into who even played Xenocluster remarked at the end of every match, they were like, I thought my matchup was better against No Limit because of Xenocluster, and it still ended up being bad. And I was like, yeah, because it's an all in or all out. You either play the discard and the go to the top package, and then you catch 22 of them, say you can only Xenocluster one of these things as a fix, or you can you can run none of them.
Right. So when we were experimenting with that one, I think with the Love It deck, I'm trying to remember the names of the pieces that we tested out. Xenocluster was definitely one of them. Obviously, we were keeping Endless Punchline with that team because it's just a good point for any card jockey team to have that. But we had also experimented with Silent Assassin, as well as bundling in VJ Wolf Mirage with Future Code. And the reason why we were testing that is because, I mean, obviously, when you're going up against a lot of wall decks, like with Akino or Bang or Ancient Surprises Ott or like any of these guys, they're going to have huge Signies that are really hard to get rid of. So we thought that Silent Assassin might be a welcome addition. The issue I was running into with that is I was having trouble finding the right moment to activate that when I could get the most out of it, because it was so based off of what my opponent was doing. So we switched into Future Code instead, and that was pretty interesting because then it became more dependent on my own personal deck, which is something that I could have more control over.
Right.
And with the addition of VJ Wolf Mirage, which boosts your Signies, it's really good for like a turn 3 play when you just need something for, like, in addition to your, like, Arcwinds or something like that.
Yeah. Inevitably, we ended up abandoning it. And the reason why we abandoned it was Mirage was at its best when No Limit is not there. No Limit so efficiently wipes the board on main phase that it stopped having a good... you can't have targets with Mirage, because Mirage needs to grow and then wipe a Signy that's less than the power of what you just grew, right? And that's the reason why we ended up not going with that plan.
Yeah. So the other deck that we were playing was Bang. I actually really enjoyed playing Bang as well. You know, I love me some big green energy. For me personally, the reason why I kind of strayed away from it is because I felt like, because we had started playing with it so close to the tournament, I personally didn't feel confident enough playing it in a larger competitive setting. So that's really the main reason why I kind of shied away from it, is because I didn't feel like I could really give my best games every game with a new deck like that, one that I wasn't used to piloting. How did you feel about it?
I agree. It was good, but what I found was there is a kind of trick to beating the Bang team that I was doing. And it wasn't even Bang that necessarily was the greatest version of it. It's just, you can make a dream team. The tech is you can make a dream team with an Umir clear. And if you freeze a team on its level 2, so it can't use its team piece, you severely weaken your opponent's deck.
Well, especially when you have something like No Limit that always will want to glory grow on their turn 3.
Right. So I think theoretically that deck could have done well at this tournament. However, if the jig is out, which is when you see an Umir clear, you are on level 2, especially if you're no limit. Don't attack. Just do not attack with your second one.
Yeah.
Because you get so much more value using your team piece, you will win the game still. And what I found was
it's not worth attacking.
Yeah, I was like winning 65% of our test game, and then as soon as we started doing that, I was losing 45, or I was losing them, and it was suddenly 45% instead of 65.
So with the Bang Dream team, we used Umir. What was the other assist that we decided would be a good fit for that?
We tried Hirana for a little bit, but then we went back to Love It.
Yeah, I do think that Love It, at least in this stage of the game with the cards that are available to us, I think that Love It is a perfectly fine red assist.
Yeah.
I actually went up against a deck that was playing different Lovets than I was for a more like aggressive approach, and that might also be a good fit for it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like playing Bang. I just wasn't feeling confident with it.
Yeah, inevitably, I also tried out a version that I was calling the meme team instead of the dream team.
Yeah, why don't you tell them how that went?
It was great. I was running, instead of Umir Clear, I was running Madoka, and then I was running Lion as assists. Basically everything. Hello, Train.
That's our Train.
I was running everything that No Limit would hate, right? I was running your favorite card.
Oh my god, Helium.
I was even running Sim Force at one point. It's not good. It's not a good card. It's not a good card. Guys, it's funny, and it would fit for the meme team, but it's not a good card. Simforce can basically refill lanes, but the minute that you realize that, okay, so they just target it first and then it dies, and then you can, and I also even ran Lightning and Illusions, which again, not a good card, but it works with Simforce with a cute combo of being like, all right, you give it Shadow, now it's hard to get rid of, or oh, you give it a power boost, now it's hard to get rid of. It was never relevant. So it didn't work. But
sometimes you try stuff out and it just doesn't work.
For what it's worth, that team was exceedingly good at one thing: just annoying the hell of the No Limit player. It would get you to turn 8 or 9, which is stupid. But then lose.
Right.
Because No Limit would eventually just flip a life force that kills something, and then they get through.
Right. All right. So that's kind of that's the tech that we ended up doing. As far as like changes to our personal decks, Card Jockey did not change at all, really.
We added like a Nobunaga.
We added a Nobunaga. We added a Katsujiki. Was that it? The red one?
Yeah. To enable a little bit more Nobunaga.
Yeah, and then we put in Xenocluster as the second piece, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally all the changes that we made to that.
In retrospect, now that the format is probably going to be a little aggro heavy and then start going to being a little like more halfway between Madoka and Musica and No Limit, maybe it's worth adding in the Lancer tech again.
Yeah, like instead of skewing white-red, we might do white-green instead.
Yeah, a little bit of that Lancer. Well, it's probably still going to be white-red with a splash of green, so that way we can use Mirage and Future Code.
Yeah. Yep.
I think inevitably the format will inevitably slow a little bit, and that will be what we end up settling into for that one.
So what changes did you make to No Limit?
What's funny is I didn't make a ton of changes, but I did do a lot of testing as to which one I thought was better. The No Limit that techs against No Limit, or the No Limit that's just straight aggro. And what I found overwhelmingly was, you notice, if you have a results-based mindset, you would be like, oh, the teched one is better than the non-teched one because X, Y, and Z, these games that I won, I flipped a Falcalore off of the first life burst and I shut the player down. And you remember those games. The actual fact is those games equal out to the same amount of how useful is it when you flip a life burst that says get rid of something that's 10,000 or less, or get rid of something that's 8,000 or less. Like, they literally equal out. Like, in the Falcalore scenarios, it's better on if you have 1 or 2 open, like undowned Signies that haven't attacked yet. The other one is better if you have a 2 or 3 downed Signies when it flips. So inevitably they're the same. The only main difference is, and this is my opinion, if you're an aggro deck, you should be an aggro deck and you should focus on aggroing. and you can get a little fancy, right? So the cat's... Oh, God, I can't even remember the name of the card. It's one of the ones that we're going to be doing
I'll find it.
Yeah, we're going to do a read cards and try to get card pronunciations down, Pat, for our welcome. Thank you for 200 subscribers, which happened this week, by the way.
Yeah,
So
guys, thank you. It was really unexpected, especially because we were like really heavily prepping for the tournament, so we were just like, what?
Yeah, so what is it?
Kagutsuchi. Yeah.
It's a level 3 that basically its ability is you can discard 2 cards, pull a level 3 out of your graveyard, and put it into play.
Mm-hmm. And then during your turn, Signy on your field, get plus 2,000 power.
Right. And its Life Burst lets you grab something from your graveyard, put it into play, or put it into your hand.
Yeah, anything without a card.
So here's the thing. That card is probably better than Thought Core, because the reason is when you use it, it's aggressive, right? It is what is it, the card called? Rose Quartz, number 5 and 6. When you use it, you get a Rose Quartz or Nobunaga out of your trash. You play it, and then you open a lane with it. So it's aggressive. But when it's Life Bursted, it's defensive because it lane clutters. And so inevitably, I found that was better than, for example, what I was seeing a lot of No Limit players also using, which was Tobayel. Tobayel vanishes and up Signy when it does stuff, and then it's got an okay ability when you're playing it, I guess. But it's just a little bit more aggressive, and I liked that more. The other thing that I ran was I was running one of the level 3s from I can pull it out. It's a level 3 from Interlude Diva. It's 13k, and it has a life burst of Tada Ketsu. It has a life burst of vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 10,000 or less. And I was running that because there's a lot of people were trying to wall with multicoloreds and Falcolors a lot. Turns out that card doesn't care. It just kills it. So when all of when all of my life bursts open a lane and all of my cards basically open a lane, I found even the decks that were trying to enter Starve me, inevitably they have to try to kill me with Life Cloth, and that would open a lane, and then I'd win. I was also still running Go to the Top. So that was my tech. It hasn't really changed very much from No Limit before, but I still think this is the best No Limit in my opinion. I fared average, right? A little above average for my play rate to get top 64. I didn't get top 16 or anything, right? But many of the games, in fact, one of the games that the guy actually did top 16, I had him down to a single card. He had to draw a card, and it was either a servant or he lost.
Right.
And he played the game exceptionally well. We talked afterwards, and he was like, yeah, that was that. There was no mistakes there. Everything was tight. It was the closest game I think I've ever played. The frustrating thing was after that, I lost 2 matches to a single life burst. I had the win all lined up, and then a random life burst blew me out.
Yeah. Gross podcast.
I know. So there was a world where my deck was 6-1, right? I admit the loss that I had against Musica. And the funny thing was I played him in the loot card tournament prior to that, and he won very, very soundly. And it made me go like, all right, what do I do to do this better next time? And I played the game perfectly after that. And it was funny because I was like going into the tournament, I was like, there's 120 some players. As long as I dodge him the entire time, probably have an easy pass. Immediately found him turn round 3 and was like, damn it.
Sometimes you just run into people during tournaments.
Yeah.
We were actually playing with a lot of people that we have come to know since before the tournament, so that was kind of cool to know like a couple people that are in the tournament or that you might run up against. It made the tournament less scary.
Yeah, to have a friend group that we got to play with and sort of report back with.
Yeah.
It was cool that we also played a couple content creators that we also have seen online.
Yeah, I actually went up against ReplayWorks, and he recorded that match. So if you want to take a look at that match, you can go over to his channel and take a look, and come back here and let me know if you have any feedback for me.
Yeah, and we played against Philip.
Yeah, Philip was my last round. Yeah.
And
super nice.
I also played against Replay Works. I lost that one, but which just means that Tiffany's the better player. But it was close. It was close. Again, there had to be, and I'm not putting shade on Andrew from Replay Works here. I really don't want to make it sound like this, but it came down to he needed a perfect combination of having just the correct amount of enter, and he was able to do that with his dark energy, so good for him, as well as being able to pull back, getting a guard off the top with one of his abilities, and also having the perfect life burst that could take out one of my Nobunaga 13k. So it's tough to take that one down. And if any of those faltered, that game would have been won by me. So it was incredibly close. So I can confidently say that all of my losses were super close.
Yeah, for sure.
What?
No, I'm just thinking back to some of my matches. That's all.
Yeah, some highlights in the matches were, again, I don't want to harp on the life bursts too hard because that's part of this game and it goes like that.
It be that way
It
sometimes.
just be like that. But I do remember one specific game where I played against someone who was also playing No Limit. And they went, hey, I'm going to do this, grow, cool, moving on. I'm at 3. I'm basically almost dead, right? Because it's a mirror match, 50%, whatever, cool. Then he was like, I'm going to use my once a game ability. And I was doing my job here because it was clear when he did his first ray that he was not playing any of the rays that would trigger Xenocluster, which means that he was playing more expensive rays. So I was doing my math in my head every time I saw the enter and just being like, all right, so the other rays cost 3 or 4. And so I kept keeping an eye on that. So when he said once a game ability, I went and I looked at his ray, level 1, and went, yep. And then he went, go to attacks. And I went, okay, any responses on your end? No. Cool. I'll grow Akino, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. We've now moved past the area where he could use Ray.
Right.
And then he attacked. And he went, okay, once a game ability triggers. And I went, yes. And he went, okay, damage. And I went, no. and he was like, I had to be like, I feel terrible telling you this, but your Ray is level 1. And that ability...
Both assists have to be level 2.
You know, and one of the things in our podcast that we talked about last time, common mistakes that you can make, that's an ability you can fail.
Yep.
And so that ability was failed. And I only say this because at these type of tournaments, you have to play high level. And I kept saying, like, I would do basically a radio play as I'm playing. I'd be like, enter charge with Ramel. Draw two cards, enter charge with Ramel, grow Hirana to level 2. That costs 1. I'm paying with Ramel, right? I'm saying the things that I'm saying, not necessarily because it's hard to show it on webcam, but also because I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's so easy to just like lose track of everything that's going on in the game. And I'm sure that those of you that, whether you're a new player or you're a seasoned player, it happens to all of us. Like, there's just so much that you have to keep track of, outside of your own like strategy, outside of your own techniques that you're trying to think of, like chess style levels of thinking ahead. There's just a lot going on, and sometimes you forget.
And I mean, like, even in our testing, right? That was one of the things at some point you and I went like, oh, we're doing this to test matchups, so it doesn't matter if we do something wackadoo, or oh, we're doing this to learn the deck more, so let's not make mistakes so we know what the true outcome would be.
Yeah.
But at some point, you and I, when we hit our third phase of testing, we
were like, no talking, no going back. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and we have to just deal with the consequences because that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah, there was one that I was like, draw, enter, grow my assist, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh, my Hirana is still level 2. And I looked at the board and I went, I can't recover from that. And I scooped and I was like, you win this one.
Yeah.
Because I made a mistake and it cost me the game.
Yep. So on that note, there were a couple of matchups that happened to me, and it absolutely cost me the game. Like, there were several games. I played some good games. Just to give myself like a positive highlight, the first game I played, I actually had 8 life cloth. At one point.
That's it. I feel like an actual achievement, especially against Hirana No Limit.
Yeah, the first matchup I had was against No Limit, which, by the way, they had full Christmas level zeros. So when they were like, open, I was like, oh, Merry Christmas.
I literally said Merry Christmas every time I did it, because I also had those.
So I ended up, what ended up happening is I had a little bit of extra enter in the beginning of the game, like within the first like 2 to 3 turns. And so I was like, well, the best course of action would be to grow my wolf sink and get an extra life cloth. So I did, and I was only down to 6, so I ended up going up to 8 life cloths.
Well, no, you couldn't have gone up to 6. You were at 7. They just couldn't find ways to open lanes.
It was really
So they supplied
wally.
you with all the enter by attacking your Signy, and just you were at 7 and you went, all right, grow on this, go to 8. Like,
yeah, that's what happened.
That's definitely achievement to just be like, I'm at the I'm above starting life total.
Yeah, which by the way, there is no maximum life cloth as far as I'm aware. I know that there's other games where like I don't think there's a maximum. Like there's other ways to grow life cloth. VJ Wolf Sync is not the only way, especially when like later cards come out. So as far as I'm aware, that is allowed.
Yeah, there's going to be eventually, like there is an all-star meta, there's a L-Rig that's exclusively just manipulates life cloth, so their life cloth go up and down, up and down.
So going back to the 2 games that like I really, it was completely on me that I did not win those games, because I really could have had I been paying attention. And the one matchup that I want to talk about was against a Bang Center. It was a pretty close game overall. I think we were both down to, I think I was at like 1 or 2 life cloth. My opponent was at 1. And we're like at turn like 4 or 5 or something like that. Like everybody's spent. And the reason I lost was because I did not activate my Lion's once a game ability when my opponent was at 1 life cloth.
I bet you're never going to do that again, though.
I will never do that again. I will never do that again. As soon as the match finished, I was like, I would have won that game.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And I'm really angry. Well, I'm really mad at myself. I am mad at myself because that's really frustrating.
You're allowed to be frustrated.
So again, it's not scary. It's frustrating to lose. And it does hurt, but like, yeah, I won't be making that mistake again.
That's frustrated is the right word, because now you can be like, I will never make that mistake again. I have learned, and I am better, and I am stronger for it now.
Yeah. The other game, this one is not as dramatic. I went up against one of the Ancient Surprise decks, which I was like, oh my god, I'm so happy to see you. Welcome. I love you. Like, I love Ancient Surprise at center. And the reason why I lost that game was because I wasn't watching their enter zone as closely as I should have, because I haven't played against Ancient Surprise in so long. I completely forgot about Harmonic Call, which costs 8. So because I was trying to blast through and be the beatdown, I gave them all the enter that they needed to do that. And by the end of that game, I was spent. They played their piece, and like I had no way to deal with it. So I'm not completely mad at that one. I like kind of saw it coming halfway through the game. I was like, this is the reason I will lose this game. But the last one that I'm like, yeah, I really should have been watching for that, was actually up against Philip. He was playing a Akino Center deck, and he had this one card on the field called Kagetsune Maru. It's a really pretty white fox girl art. It's a level 1 white.
Yeah, it's probably the best level 1, the third best level 1 white, which is why you don't actually often see it that much.
Yeah, it is a good card. Or at least it's an interesting card to go up against.
I think it's above average is what
it's above average. Yeah, you're right. So the reason why I lost that game is because I had never played against that card before, and I was really unfamiliar with its ability, so I didn't know how to deal with it. And its ability is that if there are other cards on the field, it gets +5. I think it goes
+4. Goes
plus,
to 7,000.
Yeah, it goes up to
and then
7,000.
It was being buffed by Akino's ability.
Yeah, it's 3, and then it goes up to 7 with a buff of 4 if there's any other Signy on the field with it. Which that didn't stick with me, like that thought throughout the rest of the game. And because of that, I didn't realize that if I just blasted through the other 2 Signy that were on the field instead of leaving them and trying to enter starve and trying to be fancy and trying to whatever, there's a possibility I could have won that game as well. And now that I have had that experience, it is, again, it's really frustrating, especially after the fact, because you're like, wow, I really could have just been better. But the fact of the matter is that there are just going to be cards in certain decks you've never seen before, and it's really hard to be your best player when you haven't practiced that before.
Yeah.
So,
and that's when you go back to your fundamentals. You go, what are my outs? Mm-hmm. And your outs are here. Okay, 2 life cloth. I need to open 2 lanes. I need to find out how to open up 2 lanes. I should stop thinking about things like enter starving. I should stop thinking about things like, the Signy has shadow. You just need to figure out a way to open up 2 lanes. Mm-hmm. And I had a level up moment during this tournament, which is that my life cloth is much more useful than I expected it to be.
Ooh, how do you mean? What does that mean?
Well, my life cloth are free effects. They're free cards.
Oh.
And I could win some games that I'm not going to win normally if I remember that my life cloth can maybe do it for me. Mm-hmm. And also they're enter, so that's worth mentioning. And there was a game I lost where I guarded and I had 1 life cloth left because of it. And I lost that game because inevitably a life burst happened, right? Mm-hmm. But I had to spend some of my enter in order to get rid of a card on the field. After the game, I turned off the webcam and went, what could I have done better? And I looked at that enter, right? And I was trying to win the game on that turn after. And I turned over my enter, and it was removal. And I went,
dang it.
If I saved the enter to do that, I could have cleared the field out completely, and then the life burst that the guy did wouldn't have mattered because it would have downed down and froze something. Mm-hmm. And then I would have attacked with the other one, and I would have won the game.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, okay, I as a no limit player should recognize when I start my turn, or hell, even before that, when the opponent's attacking me, I should think, do I win next turn? Or do I win the turn after? Mm-hmm. Right? I need to decide that. Because if the answer is, I win the next turn, I should not guard. I should let him take my life cloth all the way down to 0. Mm-hmm. And then on my turn, I have more resources to use. And if any of those were life bursts that would have affected the game, maybe I pulled up a handle and it let me draw some extra cards. Or maybe I did something that froze and then I'm Uchu, so now I have to do less freezing. Maybe it's a removal, right? Vanish target upped or something. I will now win that game more conclusively because of it.
Yes.
And I should need to do that more often.
I actually completely agree. I had several moments like that where my opponent was going into attacks. I maybe had like a lane or 2 open or something like that. And I had like sparse enter in my enter zone. I like had 1 or 2. And there were a couple instances where I was like, okay. And I told my opponent, I was like, give me 1 second, I'm counting, like doing a little math. And I figured, okay, here's what I could do. I know that I have certain life burst abilities that could change the direction of this particular attack turn, so that's good. Or I have life bursts that would set me up for my next turn. So what I would decide to do in those scenarios is I would count out how much damage I would take and see if it was worth growing one of my assists for the attack. And in certain cases, it actually wasn't. It wasn't worth growing either one of them at the time because I wanted the enter for something in my next turn. So I would just tell them, yep, you're good, attack all the way through. And then when one of those life bursts would come in, like a Haniel where I could fill a lane, it was just like bonus. now I'm gaining enter, I'm saving life cloth, and sometimes you kind of, I don't know, like trust in the heart of the cards or something.
I mean, you got to be like, sometimes you're like, as a card jockey player, right? You're like, I can't beat a 12K. I can't get rid of it off the field. But you know what? If it doesn't attack because they're trying something fancy like enter starving me, and I hit vanish target up, I can beat it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like there were definitely like little moments like that where there were, like you said, there was like some level up moments.
Yeah,
where you're learning.
In fact, it did pay off on round 7. I played against one of our friends, which was sad because I didn't want to take a win away. But at least it was a little less pressure.
Someone's walking away with a win today.
and I did it. I was like, I need to go down the life cloth. I need the chance to do this. Plus, I need the enter for something. And because of it, I had a guard in my hand, and I didn't use it, right? Because I didn't use it, my opponent then was like, no, he doesn't have any guards. So he went for the win. Mm-hmm. And I drew a guard that turn, and he went for Endless Punchline, hit 3. And he went, and that's another thing, too, for Endless Punchline. I actually guarded the first Endless Punchline so I could have a guard in my trash. So if I hit another life cloth or something.
Oh, I see
then
what you did.
If I got something that would bring something back from my grave to my hand, then I could bring that guard back, right? And then inevitably I went, okay, that didn't work, and then hit guard. And then played the second guard, and he was like, you had 2 guards the whole time? And I went, yeah. It was a weird play by taking the life cloth, and I needed it for the enter, but because of that, it also just didn't signal that I had the guard to win that turn.
Exactly.
To guard that turn.
Yeah.
I think my closest play was against and I think it's Diesel is how you say it, but it's with a U, so it might be Doozle.
Dusel.
Yeah, so
is how it's spelled. So I've heard people say it's Diesel. It's spelled like Duzzle or Doozle.
Yeah. Anyways,
whatever.
I ran into him in the loot card tournament. Didn't win against him, but I had a good conversation with him afterwards. I think he's probably running the best Musica deck that I would run right now.
Oh, so he is running Musica?
Yes, and he's running a very strange card in it too, called Mo. And I was like, I don't think that card's a good card, right? And he's like, no, it's not a good card, but it has an okay life burst.
When you know a card isn't good, but you've got your reasons.
I know, and he's right. It has a good life burst. It's not a great life burst, but if you look at the card pool and what's needed, it's the best option for that. And so I like him a lot. And we played. This was the super, super, super close game. One of the things I did was I kept counting my deck. I knew he has Salvage of the Future, and it's going to cause a refresh. So I got to a point where I was making sure that when he had the Salvage of the Future ready, I had around at least 18 cards in library, right? The reason why 18 is a big number is there's Salvage of the Future, mills 15. That puts you down to 3 cards. And then you draw 2. And you still have 1 in your life cloth. Therefore, if you refresh the next time, generally speaking, you don't have life cloth left, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I was being very respectful of that and I was not using for example, the loot effects where I could discard and draw cards because I was like, I need to conserve this.
It does get risky.
Yeah.
Card Jockey runs into that too. It gets risky when you've got like 5 cards in your deck and you're like, I shouldn't be looking for stuff.
And so I lost that game, but it was I want to be clear here, unfavored in that game. I think No Limit got a pretty unfavorable matchup, and the only way I really win is a little bad luck on their end, playing around Madoka Clap, which is hard because you have to try to strip cards from their hand so that it makes Madoka Clapping more unfavorable, or working around certain enter stuff so that way they have less enter, because if you full on power Madoka Clap, you will lose the game, period. Then you need to make sure that you got a little bit of luck on your end, that they don't get all the guards in the world, because that can change the math very quickly. And you need to understand that you probably aren't winning on turn 3 like you normally want to. You're probably winning turn 4. So by all that math all together, I knew I had to go down to 0 life cloth, and that I was going to need to conserve myself to get to turn 4, but that's it. Like, I managed my resources super, super well. I actually, again, raid, discard, which put pressure on the Madoka Clap. And he did the correct thing to not Xeno cluster, even though he was running it, because he had to wait for me to go to the top. Because if I went to the top and just shut off his expensive level 2 assists, then I would straight up win, period. So he actually did the correct thing here, and at the very end had to Xenocluster to draw a single card against me, and if it was either a servant or he lost the game.
Oh.
And it ended up being a servant, and he won because of that.
Wow, heart of the cards right there. That's a well fought match
Exactly.
though. Like that's the kind of match that like you can't even be mad at the outcome, because that's like watching like some sort of like anime fight scene where like everybody's so they're just like doing so well that like it's gonna come down to like that millisecond.
Again, yeah, the depth of that game was I was the aggro player, which everyone thinks aggro's dumb. It's not. But I was managing
It's calculated anger.
I was managing my life cloth, how much enter I had, the cards in my hand, the size of my Signy, because they have negative effects, and I need to keep that in mind. I was managing how many cards were in their hand, what color enter they had in their enter zone, how much of it, and what was on the board.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that aggro players can think of more than one thing at a time?
Yeah, aggro players need to keep in mind resources just as much, because they need to win by a certain point. So if you can extend some of those resources, like strangle a little bit, just to extend your early game from being 2 turns to 3 turns, that can make a massive difference.
Right.
And the truth is, I have to work around Madoka Clap.
Right.
Madoka Clap is so strong against No Limit. And so it was the first, I think, WIXOSS game that I had a flawless game. And even though I didn't win it, it was a leveling up moment. Like, it was like, no, I did literally everything correct and to the point in this game. And that's, sometimes you got to be results based too, right? You got to go like, no, I lost to this, but that doesn't mean that I did a bad job there. I think I did everything.
Yeah, I think it is important to look at your game overall and really go turn by turn and be like, did I play my best game despite the outcome?
Yeah,
and a lot of the times the answer might be like, well, there's a couple things I could have done. Well, no, I was like hungry and tilted and blah blah blah, and like, no, I didn't play my best game. Or you have games like that where you're like, despite the outcome, I played a perfect game.
Right. Against the for example, against the Replay Works, right? Against Andrew, I literally knew, kind of because of the deck text that he put out. He plays Future and Slash. I'm going to be straight, and this is no disrespect to Andrew. I don't like that card at all. I think it's a very, very, very bad card.
You're allowed to have your opinions.
It has an incredible life burst. It is a bad card otherwise. And if you play it straight for the life burst, cool.
There's a lot of cards that we choose to do that for
totally.
too.
Volcania at least has Volcanic has at least a good stat line outside of its life burst. But I play it for the life burst, right?
Right.
And I will replace it when I get the card pool is better. And I played into it. I went, what are my chances of getting hit by a Future and Slash? Negligible. It will win him the game if he gets played, but it's negligible. So I have to make this play is the correct thing. And I lost that game, but I'm not results based. I'm not thinking that Future and Slash is now the greatest card in the world. I think Future and Slash is probably still pretty bad, but was excellent in that game.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about sorry, I have to like pronounce this out every single time. Kagetsune Maru. I like, just because I know that that's the card I lost to, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stick it in all of my decks. I just understand that I was unprepared to deal with that scenario. Yeah. And you learn from it.
Exactly.
I wish I didn't have to learn these during a paid tournament, but that's just the way it goes. And it's like, a game.
With the Doozle game too, the Diesel game, I lost to him in Loot Card Tournament and went, nope. Not gonna do that again. How do I fix it? And I tanked for a while. I literally, after that game on Loot Card Tournament, you were like, it's okay to lose, and I was like, give me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And you were like, are you mad? And I was like, I'm not. I'm actually not. I need to
processing everything.
I need to think how I don't do that again next time.
Yeah.
Because every time you take a loss, you should be thinking, how do I do better next time?
Yeah. And I think that's the real takeaway from this tournament. And I think that that's the same thing for a lot of games, is it really is like, this will make me a stronger player. And trust me, I did not want to hear that after like a couple of the games that I played. I didn't want to hear it. But after you take a while to like process everything, you're like, okay, I really know I really know what I need to watch out for. I really know what I can improve on. And honestly, at the end of this, I'm looking forward to the next ceremony. I'm looking forward to the next party. I'm looking forward to the next meetup. Like I'm really excited to like, I don't know, maybe throw like a Bang Dream Team together.
Totally.
And just like maybe play the cards that I like and just like mess around for a while and then figure it out.
There are two options to playing high level competitive card games. You either play the deck that's very good, or you play a thing you know in and out.
Yeah.
And you can, those both are valid, by the way.
And that's what we did. You chose a deck that that you were not only comfortable with but was highly competitive, and I chose the deck that I felt I knew the best inside and out.
Yeah, the best part of this ceremony is now that it's over, I'm not going to play No Limit anymore. I'm comfortable with playing No Limit, and to be honest with you, like, for some of my last parties that we did, right, I played my highly tuned No Limit and got first place in those tournaments.
Yeah.
Because there were things on the line I wanted, right? at my weekly locals,
Tell us your truth.
where there's not going to be things on the line, I will just tell you right now, if you face me, you will play against Bang. Because Bang is fun to play. It's Uchu, and I like playing Uchu, and I think Bang, it's not going to be great in season 3 coming up, or I guess set 3 coming up. I'm going to definitely switch over to Nova because Nova's going to be powerful and also the last part of Uchu. And then once I've played all 3 Uchu members, then I can play anything I want because I have successfully repped Uchu for a while.
Yeah. So now that we've gone into our first large ceremony, what was your like overall experience? So for instance, for me, I am actually surprised that I didn't mind playing virtually as much as I thought I would. I am very much like, I really prefer to do things in person, especially after this whole like pandemic whatever. It's really frustrating to like be on what feels like yet another Zoom call.
Yeah, we say as we we mask up at the stores, but and not a lot of people do that, but we mask up at the stores, but we still want to play in person.
Yeah, I still want to play in person. Better. Well, also like especially for matches, like when there are cards that I'm unfamiliar with, I can just constantly ask, hey, can I read that? Hey, can I look at that? Whatever, which was particularly hard to do. Can I see your graveyard? Like all this other stuff that's much easier to do in person, or like cutting decks and stuff like that. And it's harder to do that when you have a time limit that is shorter than what you're used to. Like you just feel like you don't have time to do certain things. But that said, it actually was not as challenging as I thought it was going to be. And it was actually pretty nice. Like, for the most part, what I will say about the WIXOSS community, everyone is really, really nice.
Yeah.
Like everyone's really cordial. They're all very like I don't know. Like I never felt like I was up against somebody that was so aggressively competitive it was going to be hard to enjoy the game.
Sure. Yeah.
And I really appreciated that as well. And me personally, I would compete in a ceremony again. I would just really, really prefer if it was in person.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I like in person more than I like online.
Yeah.
What I got out of it was, and this is going to sound a little conceited, so please don't take it that way because I don't really mean it, but I am a guy who's data focused. I like seeing that I made a plan and it went down the line that it did. I literally do that for a living, so that's something I get.
Your life is a spreadsheet for real.
And while I'm disappointed that I got hit by the rough end of RNG, and I think people can trust me at least to know that I am pretty even-headed when it comes to my losses. So I'm not being like, well, if only I got this or this, like I don't like it when people do that type of thing. Literally 3 games came down to a life cloth for me, and it could have swung the other way very easily.
Right.
Even if it was a different life cloth, or life burst effect. And I see that the things that I put forward, even with rough RNG, got me to top 64. Which means that the things I said, the things I thought would be true, did come true. The meta that we predicted in our head that we had literally a weighted spreadsheet on, being like, oh, well, here's what we think what'll be. All of those things were happening. And the thought that, all right, the high-level tables are going to end up being Card Jockey, Musica, Madoka, and No Limit, and the low-level tables are going to be literally all the other wacky stuff that was popping up, happened. And it's kind of rough because you got caught in the lower-end table stuff.
Well, also, like, again, that's because I got caught up in a couple games where I didn't play my best, and I'm willing to own up to that, and I'm willing to say that there's definitely some things that I've learned in this tournament, but that's the way it be.
Yeah, and so for my end, I'm happy that the things that I thought were going to happen did happen, which means I can trust my gut a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Inevitably, I end up going with No Limit because those are the cards I had. However, I really did consider going Musica or Madoka. And I was like, I think those are the stronger decks, although No Limit's going to be the most popular deck. And I think I was right, based on what I saw people getting to the top 16.
All right. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, bang forever.
Bang forever.
Big bang.
My final thought is, I'm only sorry you guys didn't get to see my incredible MC Lion hat that one of my incredibly talented cosplayer friends made for my birthday. And I wore that during the entire tournament. And I only showed it to the person that I did a lion matchup, a lion mirror with. And they appreciated it because it deserves to be appreciated.
It deserves to be appreciated.
That's my final thought. Thank you guys so much for listening in. If you competed in the tournament, please let us know how you did in the comments down below. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, please subscribe. And as always, may you always flip a life burst.
Always flip a life burst.
Make it a good one.
Yeah.
Right at the end of the game.
I know I shouldn't say anything since we did our sign off, but one of the things that has happened in the last couple of weeks during this is a lot of people have reached out to us, talked to us, and the community, especially our community, has grown a lot, and it's been super nice to be able to speak to everyone.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.